No, it's working?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat myself, but I will say welcome for being here. Just a couple of, first of all, I would like just to thank you so much for intervening on PS 169 when we had a harsh situation about banning the Santa Claus to come to PS 169. The bad news is that Santa Claus happened to be me. So really appreciate that you listen to the parents are really concerned, to the principal. I thank her as well, because I don't believe that we should deny our kids an opportunity to enjoy their holidays. Well, thank you very much for your intervention on that. Thank you. I have a couple of questions regarding follow-up on probably Senator Marcelino about guidance counselor and social workers. As you probably know, 1 of every 6 Hispanics girls age of 14 through 20. And when you was mentioned the middle schools, that this question came back to my mind again. As a result, that most of these girls happen to be Hispanic girls who their thought is to have a tendency to commit suicide. And this happened in my district as well. We have an incident where a young girl was on 54th Street and 4th Avenue trying to jump on the rail of the subway station. We have another one on 9th Street Smith who was trying to jump in the rail. We're talking about 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. My question to you is, what kind of assessment, mental health assessment, do the Board of Education is conducting in order to assess our children within the school system?
Well, we do have protocols for guidance counselors on how to talk about suicide in their respective schools. If this is an issue, we have guides around suicide. In terms of assessing, having mental health clinics is one of the ways to do it. I think one of the challenges that we have is how do we talk to parents about how to talk to their children about this. And one of the things that we have found, at least personally in the last couple of years that I've been here, is that there is no one pattern for most of our suicides. What seems to be a little bit more prevalent is absence from school or fear of some kind of repercussions. But it's not about assessing which kids might be able, but it's still based on teacher recommendations or parents coming to school to worry about their kids, but also sometimes we also find that if teachers, and I just think of 2 cases recently, where teachers brought this to parents, parents are in denial. So there's got to be a lot more workshops for parents about signs of, and we have those. We have brochures on those issues. And also to guidance counselors and teachers, if you think your child is in need of an intervention, what should you do? Our guidance counselors are prepared to talk about these issues, and putting more guidance counselors, more social workers in our schools is another way to go, but it's not an easy topic.
Let me just entertain the question back again about the asking about how many social workers and guidance counsel and psychology do we have in the system? Do every school has a social worker? Do every school have a guidance counsel? Do every school have a psychology?
The psychologists are used more for testing purposes. Most schools have either a social worker or a guidance counselor. Some schools have both. Some schools have 3 or 4. Depends on the population of the school, but we can get you the specific numbers. Yeah. And that's a number we keep adding to.
I will appreciate if you can get back to me on that, because as you know, I represent School District 15 and School District 20, and it's a big discrepancy about both school districts. And I do visit the school very often. I go to the school Fridays, and I speak to the kid, and I entertain my emotion to be there for the last 22 years. And one of the biggest issues that continue to be addressed is that we don't have enough guidance counsel. We would like to have a psychology inside. Some schools have a psychology, like you stated, and I agree with you, some need more help than others. But I do believe that this is a pattern that continues to happen in Sunset Park itself. And I would like also to thank you for what you did on PS15 about the autism, to address the autism in the school, because I think that has been served as a model, which is another issue that I have worked very hard on it, to make sure that we take care of those kids who are suffering from autism and be integrated in the regular mix. I'm for it. My other question is, you mentioned about, which I also agree with you, on art, music, and I will add to it acting. And a very big fan of that. Since I've been elected to office, I've been putting money to School District 15 and School District 20 to make sure that every school, as much as I can, will have instruments, will have the equipment necessary to present this give this to the student in the school system. But one of the lacking is that when I do that, they don't have a teacher. We don't have an art teacher, they don't have a musician teacher, they don't have an acting teacher. We have a great model school on MS 443, which I work with them very, very close. And PS10, for example, has another group, but they don't have, some of them lacking in teachers. My question is, what are you trying to do in order to make sure that we can give this opportunity to the kids, because it's very helpful for the development and the intellect of our kids?
Well, first, let me ask 3 questions. First of all, the fact that we're bringing back arts teachers means that there's been a number of years where many people didn't go into this field because they didn't think they would have jobs. So now that we've said to all, because I meet with the deans of the School of Education like every 3 months, and I've said to them, these are the areas that I need you to prepare more people. Guidance counselors, ESL teachers, special ed teachers, arts teachers. We know what the needs are going to be. So that's one of the reasons we entered into this partnership with Lincoln Center. We're also thinking of other cultural institutions where, for example, BAM could help do some of this. In terms of not having enough teachers, especially in District 15, all they have to do is pick up the phone, and we have a department that helps people get those teachers. This year, we also put out grants. If schools were willing to share teachers, and we specifically did it based on the issue that brought up before, if an elementary school and a middle school wanted to share the same arts teacher with the idea that eventually you'd move from here to there, we would pay a piece of this money. Part of the $23 million was to encourage more arts teachers to be shared between 2 schools. But principals have to apply for this. They have to let us know. We have an entire department that reviews resumes. I can't imagine PS10, Laura couldn't pick up the phone and say, do you know of anyone? So I do think that's part of it. The other thing is, and I do encourage you to look at the arts, also from residencies. We have a tremendous amount in all our boroughs, fabulous arts residencies that are willing to come to schools and work with kids. And there are many of them who would do that work. And also the other thing we've entered into partnerships with is for schools that want to start instrumental programs. We now have a relationship, one of the media companies, which actually donates instruments to schools if they want to start musical. It'll come to us, right? But the reality is, it's having the right art teacher in the right discipline and making sure the principal has a plan. But the one arts form, and I agree with you on theater arts, especially for our English language learners, getting up, nothing improves speech more than getting on the stage and feeling empowered to talk about it. As part of the Hamilton money, the kids have developed monologues, and they have to go on the stage and compete with each other, the schools that are coming. That thing on Broadway is going to be almost all day. So that's partially what we're going to do. The most popular arts form right now in terms of unexpectedness is dance. Dance, however, requires that we have a dance room. It requires a certain kind of flooring. It requires mirrors. There's a whole other infrastructure that we have to put in place. But we're finding that more and more schools are requesting that. So I do think arts are alive and well, but just let me know and we'll figure out a way to get them teachers.
Last but not least, because my time is running out, I forgot to wear my NYU hat, but you have a beautiful one over there. I did went to NYU myself as well. I have 2 pieces of legislation which I would like your staff to look into it and give us feedback. One is mandating a social worker in every school in the state of New York, and the second one is mandating a guidance counsel and a psychology in every school. I do believe fundamentally that if we can identify the problems of our children at the early stage of their life, we will be able to intervene early, engaging the family in the discussion, and make sure that we can develop a plan of action to address the need and the problem that this family face, and this kid will be able to perform better academically. So I hope that you get a chance to look at it. It was a pleasure.
I love
Thank you.
Funded mandates. I worry about
let me just put it on the record. It is not an unfunded mandate. I do have a funding stream The problem is that, I don't know if people here will agree with me, I would love to charge a 25 cents to carbohydrate items, and if we can do that, we can come out, and I have the econometric model to prove it, $1.2 billion that will help us also to address the issue that was addressed by my colleague Kosek about obesity, who has been another issue that I've been addressing for many, many years. So if you can support the surcharge on sodas, we will be able to get $1.2 billion, and I welcome your support for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Senator Nozzolio.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chancellor. You asked a lot of questions about a lot of different things. Here's another different thing. That we call them in upstate New York school resource officers. I'm not sure what you call them in New York City, but do you have trained, retired, or current police officers who are involved with safety in your schools?
Well, we have school safety officers in all our schools, and they're
In
trained.
and I need to, that's what I want to know, the scope and breadth of it. In every single school?
Every single school, and how many there are depends on the number of students. And they're trained by the NYPD, and we work in conjunction with them.
And they're deployed by they're full-time employees of the NYPD?
Yes, and they, again, in our high schools, they tend to be, depending on the number of students, anywhere from 3 to 7 to 8 of them per school, but we have them in every single school.
And so these are paid for by, out of not your budget, but the school, but the police department budget?
We pay for them, the NYPD trains them.
Could you explain that a little more?
Sure. We make a payment to the NYPD for the service that they provide us of school safety.
So reimburse them dollar for dollar for what
Yes, we give them the money for the service they provide, yes.
That,
yeah.
Do you have any idea how many school resource, school officers there are?
I think the number is in the thousands, but I don't have it.
Yeah, it would have to be,
I can get it for you, though.
it would have to be at least 3,000, at least, because we have at least one in every elementary school, and then middle schools and high schools tend to have more. And what we also do, this year in particular, we're working with the NYPD to retrain them, because we want them also to, especially with our, culture and climate that we're trying to do, how to de-escalate issues as well as be there in terms of when an issue does occur. So we have a very good working relationship, and also many of them work with students, in after-school programs and a multitude of other things. But that is something that's in every single school.
Chancellor, who assigns those police officers, and how is that determination made?
Well, first of all, we have there are supervisors over them, and they take care of the deployment and the redeployment depending on the issues in a particular school. So if there's a school that is perceived to have more issues, there'll be more, and what we call level 3s of the supervisors. But I'm in constant discussion with the NYPD on what their roles are and what they do. Principals have some ability to talk to them, but in terms of evaluating them, it's done through the NYPD.
And that NYPD unit is specifically designed or tasked with this particular skill set for officers?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a separate title.
Yeah, it's a separate title. They're called school safety agents.
And those school safety agents, do they have individual posts, or they do walk freely through the halls, or what is basically the modus?
The most important job that they do, they serve as security at the front door. You cannot get into a school in New York City without signing in and showing ID, including me, to the school safety officer. So depending on the size of the building, there is one person at the desk or 2 people. That's their first job, and that's one of their primary jobs. If it's a high school, they're also expected to walk the building, and particularly to walk the building in what might be the hallways, the corners, whatever. And they have rotation posts. In elementary schools, they serve more as the face to the public so that no one goes in there without an appointment. You have a sign-in book as you go into a school. You have to sign to show the ID. And they also give you a sticker that says where you're going. So if you're walking the building, you have a special ID on you that shows usually they're yellow, and it says visitor, and you have to go to where it tells you that you're going. So there's a lot of protocols that we've put in place to ensure that they do the job that they're meant to do. In high schools, we've been encouraging a lot more of walking the buildings in different ways and engaging in conversation with kids, so you don't get to see students for the first time when they're in trouble, but it's a constant conversation.
And that's exactly the area I'd like to probe a little further, that they're allowed to make conversation with students, they're able to interact with them and ask questions, answer questions, act as role models, those kinds of things.
It really depends on them, and what we've been trying to get principals to do is to make sure they're more used as preventive than coming after the fact. But again, like everything else, it depends on people's personalities. I went to a school recently where the principal told me that the school safety agent in her building actually plays basketball with some of the kids during lunchtime. And to me, that's an ideal situation, because if you have the same 8 kids who are going to get in trouble all the time, get to know them first, so maybe that doesn't happen. But that's not so much written in stone. It's an individual agent and individual principal working on those agreements.
Did those officers engage in normal, are those officers given regular training specific to that type of role?
Yes, they are. And last year, to enhance the role, we had our first ever.
Yes,
That's right.
Yeah, with a celebration.
I'm a big believer in celebrations. So we had our first celebration for school safety officers, and we had it, in order to be nominated, you had to go above and beyond what the job called for. And in most cases, above and beyond, that you did some kind of interaction either with parents or students. That was not part of your normal job, because we're trying to show that people who go above and beyond are the people who should be celebrated. And actually, Commissioner Bratton came to the ceremony. We had all the brass coming to the ceremony. They got certificates, and we're doing it again this year.
Do you have any idea of the total cost, the budget for this?
I can get it for you. I'm sorry I didn't bring it. I can get it for you.
And I think we'll certainly probe this further next week in public protection. But this program is extensive and in many cases may be needed to be replicated across the state. So thank you. Anecdotally, do you have success stories that you can relate?
Yes, I'll tell you, we have one in an elementary school that she is the chief reader. Now, what is a chief reader is? She sits at her desk, she takes it, it's you know, obviously she's a security officer, but there are children every day who somehow can't seem to sit still, and their job is to take their read-aloud book and sit by the school safety officer and read to her, and she can still do her job while she's doing that. I gave you the example of the one in a high school where he works with the kids, and then there's one in a middle school where there were 3 kids who were consistently in trouble, so he mentors them on how to behave. I don't ask what that matters, you know, but those are the people who were nominated for these awards. I'm trying to think, there was another one that has been doing this job for like 20 some odd years, a long time, and he mentors other school safety officers on how to, you know, do the preventive stuff. So there are a lot of people going above and beyond, and, you know, we celebrate custodians who go above and beyond. Celebrating good work, I think, is really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Assemblyman O'Donnell.
Good afternoon. I just want to echo everyone's comments about how impressed and impressive you are. I want to publicly thank the mayor for convincing you to take the job, and say that in all my years of sitting in this room, I have never seen any witness that is as knowledgeable and as thorough as you have been here today, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm going to say that to my husband, who's enjoying his time in Florida while I'm doing this.
Well, yeah, yes, we all have husbands. Yes, I understand. Let me tell you that I represent District 3 in Manhattan, which is not considered a high-needs district, and but I represent the northern half of District 3. Okay, not the elite part, the northern part. Okay.
I know.
And what I want to address with you is a very parochial issue, but I think it gets to the heart of some of the problems that we have. There are 2 schools in my district, are phenomenal schools. They have phenomenal principals. They have engaged parents. They're phenomenal. I would send, if I had children, I tell my constituents, send your children to PS 75 and PS 163. Do you know what the problem is? They're under threat. They're under threat because of building construction. They want to build a 22-story nursing home 12 feet from the windows of PS 163. That's as close as you and I are, right? For 26 to 30 months, okay? They want to do that by putting a crane that would swing over the roof of PS 163. At PS 75, they're intending to build adjacent to the school in the next, right across the street, which is the street where the children currently line up to go into school, right? PS 75 is the place where that unfortunate accident took place, right?
That's the Emily Dickinson School.
That's correct.
And I know the principal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have been able to get nowhere with the City of New York about should this be allowed. In my opinion, it should be against the law to build 12 feet from a public school window. And because of school choice, what's going to happen if these plans go forward, those schools will be destroyed. PS 163 may be physically destroyed if some accident occurs, but we have school choice, and the parents who choose to send their children to a Title I school in District 3 are going to bolt. They're going to bolt, Chancellor. They're going to bolt. And I can't really blame them. So my first question to you is, do you have any ability to weigh in on what is happening adjacent to the property that you control with the city to say this is a unacceptable thing for you to allow to happen, or do you not have any role?
We do not have, I've been to 163 several times already, so I know the situation. What we were able to offer 163 is the ability to give them a person under Deputy Chancellor Rose to help oversee the construction, because they have certain things they had to do. Gail Brew has been very involved in this issue as well. What guidelines, and one of the things they had asked for is for not having the work being done during certain school hours or during arrival or dismissal time. So that's the kind of thing we can impact, but in terms of stopping them from building, that's not within our jurisdiction. 75 is a whole other situation. And that principal is doing such, and that's one of the few schools, originally arts-focused, with a lot of things going on there.
Yes, my chief of staff went there as an elementary school
Yeah.
student, yes.
And also has one of the model dual language programs in the city of New York.
Yes, it does, yes.
So, to me, I didn't know about this, PS 75 issue. I'll certainly call, Bob O'Brien is still there?
Oh, yes, he's still
Yeah, okay,
there.
so I'll speak to Bob. 163 I'm very aware of because I've been to several evening meetings there. But I can get back to you specific, but I know we looked into it, and there's no way that we can stop. We can give assistance in what hours they work, what kind of work they do while the kids are in the building. So that's the kind, and we can give the principal, which is what they asked for, help so they don't have to do that aspect of the job in terms of supervising.
Well, I had the distinct pleasure of being raked through the coals by the New York Times editorial board for sending a yoga teacher into PS 163 when the previous construction down the block was happening. This construction is happening over their heads. And if you and the mayor can't do something to stop that construction, you will destroy that school. It will become what it used to be, which was a school that kids only went to when their parents couldn't figure out where else to send them. And that would be the biggest shame in the world, because Dr. Pepe and the current principal have done such a phenomenal job, and those parents have killed themselves. And now it's all for naught. And, I don't think they should be allowed to build a 22-story high-rise within 12 feet of the windows of a public school. And because I don't think there's any way while that school is occupied for those children to be safe, or for them to have an adequate learning environment, or a safe ingress or egress. There's just no way to do that, given the scale of what they intend to build and given the time frame. And they've currently won the first phase of the lawsuit the parents brought, which makes me very happy. But It's all very good to hear about how we're going to build new schools, or we're going to do these new programs, and I support all that 100%. But if we don't take the jewels that we have and keep them that way, we're going to end up failing in the long run. And then what's going to happen is all those elite schools to the south of me, that's where those parents are going to start demanding that their kids go, and we've been through that once before. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. And I just have a quick question, and then I'll, when the time is right, turn it over to Senator Liz Krueger. I appreciate all of the answers you've given today. You've been very thorough. I was wondering about the renewal schools, and I appreciate what you've been able to allay today regarding them. But I do know that part of the agreement on the renewal schools is to expand the school day by 1 hour. And the question is that something that you look toward in the future to do for all of the schools across New York? And if it's good for renewal schools, why is it not good or good for the other schools? And if you could please comment on that, please.
Well, I think you're talking about finances and resources, and where do you put your priorities? So right now, the money that was made available was made for our most struggling schools. So that's where we're starting. And the other thing is that one of the things we do very carefully in New York City is we assess everything we do. So once this year comes to an end, we will assess this work. What were the results? Certainly no change in public education or any education takes a year. I mean, that's one thing Mary and I have discussed forever. You don't undo years of neglect or whatever overnight. This is not a magic potion. So that is part of what we do. Many of our schools run extra programs, but in terms of systemically doing it, we really have to wait and see how the resources come down.
So you said you will be assessing
Absolutely.
that, and when you do that, do you issue some sort of public report? Do you just give it to the mayor? Do you share it with the public? Because it would be interesting to see what the results of the information you receive actually is.
Yeah, I think at least for this year or next year, it will be more anecdotal, or certainly in terms of the things I would like to see improved, and that will be public. Which schools have improved attendance? Which schools are going to have teacher retention? Which schools we have something called a snapshot and quality review. We evaluate all our schools, and one of the things that we looked at in terms of the schools' evaluations is, do teachers work collaboratively? Is there rigorous instruction? So those are evaluation tools we already have in place. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe making public in the renewal school worlds these evaluations in terms of how they improved before they had resources and now with the resources. So that we could actually, they are public, they're on the internet right now. You can go on and download the information from any single school in New York City.
I think that would be very helpful because of the decision-making process that we undertake here, and also just sharing information as far as policy goes. So thank you for that, Chancellor.
Assemblyman Tatone.
Thank you, Chancellor, and good afternoon. Certainly, from my perspective, you hit on so many points that are near and dear to me with respect to the arts, and I can tell you I've had 3 requests from schools for so-called discretionary funding for ballroom dancing at those schools, so that's great. But sadly, what I'm not hearing is something that I really, we've discussed before in the past. I just want to give an example. For decades on Staten Island in the North Shore, there's been an abandoned building that over the years, not only the residents, the people around it, but the press, and it's just been for decades crying, just tear it down before something bad happens. Finally, tragically, a 16-year-old boy was in the building playing, and he died. Weeks later, the building finally came down. I bring that up because my question is, with respect to transportation of our special ed children, what is it going to take to finally get the city to change the way we're doing business when it comes to transporting our children with special needs. We've seen, just very recently on Staten Island, a young boy with special needs who the bus driver could not find his home, despite the fact that he had GPS but refused to turn it on. The bus matron was of no help. This boy was on this bus for over 6 hours without anyone stopping to give him water, to let him go to the bathroom, with no information to the parents or to the school. And the horror stories keep coming. It was put upon the parents to adjust this poor boy's behavior when he refused to get on the new bus because he was traumatized by his experience. The horror stories keep piling on, and yet we're still at, point A with respect to this issue. We have special needs children who are being placed on school buses with general education kids. So we have young kids with special needs being placed on a school bus with high school kids because that is more economically feasible. What is it going to take for us to change that?
I mean, I am very happy to set up a meeting with you to discuss this issue with Deputy Chancellor Rose, but I know that we have been working very hard, and to be very honest, that particular family emailed me directly, and I answered them directly. But once again, the amount of busing in New York City, we've just added for more busing, is a very complicated issue. It's probably one of the ones that, is the one that requires a lot more site, but why don't we make an appointment, and I'm happy for you to sit and talk with me. No, because I can't be specific about a whole bunch of
I
things.
understand that, but I hope the urgency of which I speak, that, when you're coming here and we're talking about the campaign for fiscal equity, I would like to be hearing the city and you saying, we need this money, Albany, so that we can change a potentially very dangerous situation. We don't have the money that we need to transport our special education kids safely. Thank you.